Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Karen, or you can call me Kay. You guys probably recognize me from talking about what really happens down there after you have a baby. And today, I'm gonna talk about what it really feels like when you're giving birth. Honestly, I didn't think I was gonna film so many videos about birth and postpartum, but I feel like this is really important to talk about because so many women give birth. It just happens to a lot of people and we gotta talk about it more. I want you guys to know though that every single person's birthing experience is very different. Mine, as the nurse said, is actually as good as it gets. So my whole experience with what birth really feels like is going to sound so different from maybe what your mom's birth experience was like, your sisters, your cousins. But I thought I'm gonna add a little bit more to the conversation with my experience. Like a lot of people, I was so afraid of giving birth. It's actually my top fears next to dead things. I have this irrational fear of just like dead things. I could look at a live spider, but when it's dead, it's just like get the away from me. That's how terrified of birth I was. And leading up to my birth, I cried about thinking about giving birth. I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this belly is getting so big and she's gotta come out. But as I was getting near the process, I was like, okay, I need to face my fears, and it's just debilitating to be afraid but not know exactly what's going on. So I finally bought some books. I watched so many birth vlogs on YouTube. I YouTube searched raw birth vlogs. I've watched raw home birth vlogs. I've gotten so desensitized to the vagina ripping open and the head coming out. By the time it was my turn to give birth, I kind of have an idea what this is gonna look like. I've seen people have home births that they're like screaming, saying, no, I can't. And I've watched people have home births where they're smiling and it's almost like an orgasmic experience for them. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum. And after having done all that research, I was like, okay, I am going to get an epidural. Okay, for me, I need an epidural because I want assistance in the pain relief aspect. So I had an epidural. So my experience is actually going to be really different from people who had natural births because I had an epidural and I didn't feel a lot of the pain. Also, my epidural was successful, meaning that it worked throughout the whole entire process, so therefore my birthing experience is also going to be different. What really helped me get over my fear of birth was watching positive birth vlogs and understanding a little bit more what hypnobirthing is. I'm not going to get too deep into hypnobirthing because personally I am not equipped to talk about it because I don't know too much about it. But I've watched this one girl, which I wish I remember what vlog it was. I watched so many, I actually can't remember who it was anymore, but she literally had a birth that almost seemed like it was orgasmic at home by herself, unassisted. It was really crazy. But she had like 3 babies, so by this baby, she knew what she was walking into. I'm not saying do it. It's kind of wow, whoa, but watching that vlog, how she views birth really helped open up my mind and calm me down. And she describes each contraction like a wave, a big tide that she rides on, and she gets closer to meeting her baby every single tide that she's riding on. Let's talk about what contractions feel like. A lot of people describe them as really painful period cramps. I 100% agree, but it's like to the intensity where you can't speak. Have you ever had period cramps that painful before where you cannot speak or you can't move or you have to like curl like super deep into your body and you just need to cancel the week? So it feels like that, but it's almost like a rhythm, contractions. It goes from small and you know it's coming and it expands and expands and it takes up so much space in your body to the point where you can't think of anything but your contraction just taking up all the space. It's like a muscle that's stretching so hard. Every time a contraction came on, what really helped was not fighting it. And I think that's the hardest part because we watch so many Hollywood films that make birth so terrifying where it's like you gotta scream, you gotta use your energy and just like scream the pain through the top of your lungs. But honestly, that's like the opposite that you should be doing. And when I think of my birth experience, I think it was one of the most spiritual and beautiful birth experience because I watched so many vlogs to prepare myself that I knew what kind of environment I wanted my delivery room to be in. I had this Asian spa relaxing playlist playing the entire day with my sound machine so that it's like super calming and dim. It's almost like you're walking into a meditative room. I wanted people to speak softly. I just didn't want to be disturbed because whenever the contractions came, it could feel very chaotic, and it is definitely a mental game. Contractions last for hours and you can be so mentally exhausted from that pain expanding and then contracting to smaller again, expanding and contracting to smaller again. And what really helped was the calm Asian spa music, my Hatch sound machine, dim lights, and every time a contraction came on, I would be on my birthing ball and I'll be rotating in a rhythmic circle. There's no pressure in my hips, imagining that I'm riding this wave, meeting my baby. As each contraction gets bigger and bigger, I am getting closer to meeting my baby. The spa music really helps, and it's almost like you're having a very unique meditative experience. I was having this meditative contracting experience up until I was 4 cm dilated. I think that lasted about 3.5 hours or so, which actually isn't that long in the grand scheme of things. Laboring can sometimes last for days. For me, it was about 6-ish hours. By the time I was 4 cm dilated, the contractions were getting to a point where it was really hard for me to just use my visualization to help with the pain, and I had to get the epidural. And speaking of the epidural, it was actually the least painful part of the whole birthing process because the contractions were a lot stronger. And the epidural, I was just like, come on, let's get it in, sis, and let's stop this pain so that I don't feel anything anymore. I think in a nutshell, hypnobirthing is basically more of like a meditative way of looking into the laboring process, practicing your mind to accept the pain instead of fighting against it, because the more you go with the flow of your body's rhythm, the easier the birthing process is going to be. Once again, everyone's birth experience is really different, but this is just how I was able to handle my pain situation. It definitely is a struggle, and your brain wants to shut down. It's very exhausting. But because I had my spa music and I really looked at it as like a really peaceful and meditative journey, it was so beautiful. Every time I hear the Asian spa playlist, I kind of get taken back to that moment, and I remember the strength that I have mentally and physically that helped me overcome each contraction. It really is a process of just letting go and letting your body do its thing and not fighting the pain, really just embracing it, imagining it to be something that you are getting closer and closer to meeting the baby that you've been dying to meet the last 9 months you've been carrying them. Okay, so now I feel like I've covered the contractions part pretty much. For a lot of other women who have natural birth and they didn't get the epidural, the pain is going to be so much more intense than I've experienced. I think at a certain point, you're just so exhausted. Women are so powerful. Our bodies are so freaking amazing that it makes me really emotional to think that I was so harsh on my body before I became a mom. And I had these unrealistic expectations of how it's supposed to look like because all the imagery that mainstream media is bombarding me with. Now that I've had a baby, all the extra like smush, meat, stretch marks, it's still a process to unlearn these toxic things that I've learned my entire life towards how I view my body image. But after just giving birth, I know it sounds so cliche. After you've been through that, you're like, holy shit, my body is so powerful. It could withstand so much pain and it can give life, make fingers, make a little brain, and it can push out that life. Wow, why was I so harsh on myself for the way it looked? It can make life. Anyway, back to the original topic. So the next part of my delivery process was ramping up to being more dilated. You got to be 10 centimeters dilated in order to be able to push. I think at about 4 centimeters dilated, I was given the epidural, and everything was pretty smooth sailing from then on. I fell asleep. In my dreams, I felt like I was definitely on some kind of drug. I had these weird dreams. And the best way of explaining, in my dreams, I felt like I was on some sort of psychedelic trip. It was so weird. And what woke me up was when the epidural stopped working on one side of my back and I felt the contraction, not so much in the front anymore, but in my back, and it was so painful that I couldn't think. I had to ask the nurse to come in to adjust the epidural so it would go on the right side of my spine. That hurt a lot, and I just couldn't wait for the epidural to work again. And when it worked again, everything was fine. I couldn't feel anything down there. The nurses had to do a lot of like tubing situation because of the epidural. I couldn't go to the bathroom anymore, and they had a catheter in. I didn't feel any of that. I knew something was happening down there, but there was like no sensation. And by the time it was time to push, I felt, you know, when you got a poo without the stomach ache, but you feel the pressure building down there and you're like, okay, I got to push this big poo out. That's what it feels like with the epidural. I didn't feel any of the ripping that actually happened. I didn't feel pain. What it felt like was pushing the biggest poo I've ever had to push out. It took so much effort using your pelvis muscle, just different types of muscles down there, muscles you didn't know existed, to push. That moment when she popped out, it was wow. The pressure is gone and she's out. I don't know how to explain it because it happened so fast for me. I think she came out within 15 minutes. It just felt like a really big poo. The biggest poo ever, but it's a person. That's what giving birth feels like. Big poo with a lot of pressure. And if I didn't have the epidural, it would have hurt so badly because the hole was like, it's so small and then it gets all big and stuff. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I was induced because my water broke, but I didn't have any contractions naturally. So my doctor put me on Pitocin. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is although I didn't feel physical pain, what I felt was pressure of like a poo coming out. It doesn't sound beautiful, I know. When they say you get a release of happy chemicals after you give birth, I was on a high. Like I was so excited. I had so much energy. I think I was up for 30 minutes just like enthralled with this human that looks like me, is so small and cute and breathing. She was so cute. I remember I was FaceTiming my family. My mom was like, you should calm down and rest because your body needs it. And as soon as my mom reminded me that I should rest, I closed my eyes and I knocked out. My body was weaning off of the many hours of drugs that I was on, and it was kind of insane. If I can remember the moment that she came out, wow, that was a euphoric experience. It was like I was on some kind of drug. And the come down after you give birth and you have the baby blues, or sometimes even postpartum depression, it feels like you've had a really intense party drug and then you're crashing because your hormones are going so intensely high up in like excitement and happiness, and then it just crashes. The week after I had the baby, I was crashing. I would love to hear what your experience is like if you've had kids in the past, because everyone's experience is going to be so different from mine. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know I've said poo so many times. I really hope that if you guys are afraid of giving birth, that this video have helped maybe calm your nerves down a little bit. Watching videos like this for me really helped me. That is my experience. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you guys liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, feel free to give it a thumbs down and subscribe to my channel if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone. I was always the one to find myself lost in long conversations. Oh,